So hi and welcome everybody to Under the Hat this week. I personally am delighted to have one of our master instructors, one of our instructors of the year and an England golf coach of the year, and a good friend of mine, Andrew Nicholson, with us today. Andrew is based at the Wynyard Golf Club. He's been with the Leadbetter Academies for many, many years, and coaches at all ages and stages, has been highly successful with a number of players, but both at junior level, regional, county, professional tour level, and has also been a great player himself. So Andrew, we are very grateful that you've given up some time today. I'm delighted to have you and can't wait for us to dive deeper into the topic of development. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sounds nice, those kind words. Especially from such a fantastic coach yourself. Very kind. Yeah, no, we've known each other for, since you were a little kid. So, yeah, it's we've got lots of memories and helped one another. And yeah, it's funny the way that life and golf is, it seems to work that way, that you seem to come together with people and, those people stay around in your life. It's quite interesting. Yeah, but no, it's good.
Absolutely, and welcome to everybody that's joined us today. I know it's always difficult with the time zones around the world, and we'll get to some questions along the way. So if you've got any questions, please post them in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll get to them. The idea of these Under the Hats is it's not so much about me and the questions that I'll ask Andrew or point him in certain directions. It's more about what you guys want to get out of it as well. And we're all in this to try and help each other out and share our experiences and learn from each other. So, Andrew, as you said, our journey together started when my dad walked into Middlesbrough Brass Castle Pro Shop to get me a set of bladed irons, a set of Wilson FG49s, because the Wilson FG49s, I was a Faldo fan and I wanted them for Christmas, and my dad kind of kindly found some, and that took us to Brass Castle. You were the assistant, and on the back of getting them, I took some lessons with you. You were pretty much my first golf instructor. And I remember that year really specifically. I went from 21 to 7 handicap in that year. So credit to you and your coaching. But it's amazing, like you say, the world of golf is a big world, but it's also a very small world. We've known each other for a long time. I've had the pleasure to spend 4.5 years working alongside you at the Wynyard Club, and watching you coach and teach firsthand. And I think some people on this chat today and on this call have actually spent time around you as well. And I think we can all say that you have a tremendous attention to detail. You present a fantastic environment for your students. You hold your students accountable. And you can work with any age or stage of player. And the topic today, we talked about what would we talk about, and it's development at all levels. And I just really wanted to kind of say, well, let's make a start. And you present this great environment. You're a great coach. You've got great relationships with your players. You're immensely caring as well. And you lose sleep over your students, and you try and figure out what is the right thing to do by them. What inspires you as a coach, even now to this day, to keep driving forward and becoming the best you can be?
I think my primary reasons would be that, I guess that my primary reason for being a coach is a desire to try and help people. And then from that kind of primary reason, there is secondary reasons of trying to understand it, you know what I mean? And I think that, as David says, that a good coach, we're always challenging ourselves, and we're always trying to do things a little differently or a little better. And I think that in essence is right at the heart of me, is to try and think to myself, how do I help this kid in front of me? Because we were all that kid at one time, and you have such passion and such emotion. So then how do you take that kind of ball of energy, and then, you know, in essence, how do you work that ball of energy? And, you know, and that's in essence the bit that I've always found fascinating. And everybody's ball of energy is a little different. You know, you have some people that are more talented physically, you have some people who are more talented mentally, some people are more talented technically, and, you know, so everybody comes at you with different strengths and different weaknesses, but it's still the same ball of energy. And in essence, you're trying to take that energy and refine it and define it and challenge it and test it. And I think that that's the big thing is, you know, that's kind of what I think is important, is the challenge. I think that kids love challenge. And, you know, if you think about, even if you want to be Darwinian about it, that, you know, like the evolution of the species is about challenge. So, you know, that ability to challenge and adapt is at the heart of a human being. So I guess I just try and work along those very simple but profound philosophies that, you know, we've got to adapt, you know, and, you know, we've got to challenge. And you know, me as a coach, I definitely, you know, I don't make things too easy on my students. You know, it's I don't try and like impress them by telling them how good they are. I almost go the other way, that I'm very strong with them and develop a relationship based on trust and integrity and honesty. And rather than develop a relationship based on smoke and mirrors and like that. I mean, you know, there's times obviously you have to put your arm around people and support them and help them. You know, but I think ultimately for someone to achieve their goals and their dreams and their ambition, they have that ball of energy. And it's for us as coaches to, you know, challenge them and make it difficult and build hurdles for them. I think that's the thing. It's like people say to me, you know, how do you do this, Nico? And it's simple. I just kind of like find ways of making it difficult. And, you know, and I have different levels of difficultness depending upon where the student is, you know, mentally, physically, mechanically, etc., and what part of their game they're struggling with. And then in essence, you're building hurdles, you know, maybe small if their confidence is low. If their confidence is sky high, you're building like higher hurdles. And I guess that's the adaptation of environment and the adaptation of process. And I guess that's like our job as coaches, is to kind of use environment, you know, take a holistic approach to, it's not just about somebody's golf swing, you know what I mean? And I think that's the big thing. It's like people know me as, in some respects, my students have good swings, and you could argue I'm a swing coach. Anybody who knows me like you do, Stu, know that that's like, you know, that's only one spoke to a very robust wheel, really. It's much more about the wheel than it is like one individual element of that wheel.
Yeah, and I think you touched upon something there that we've spoken about when I spent time with you at the Wynyard Club, and it was about the spokes to the wheel for a player. You know, what spokes do they need to be successful and fulfill their dreams? And if I backtrack just 1 second, I think what's really interesting there was you talked about, you know, understanding the player. You talked about kind of really kind of, you know, being honest with them as well. And I think as players, whether it's a child or whether it's a professional you're working with, if you tell them, hey, you're doing great, that looks much better, but they're not hitting it great and they're not swinging it and they know it's not better, they're going to see right through it. So it's one of those things, there's no point doing it to people, and people appreciate you being honest, even a child as well. You know, I think more so that honesty, and I think that's something you exude when I watch you teach. And One thing I wanted to kind of touch upon, and whether you know you do this or whether you've trained to do this, but one thing that always stands out to me is you ask very, very clever questions. And when I watch David teach, and guys in your kind of league as well, like Sean and David and a bunch of other coaches, I think it's just amazing what they can draw out of a student with a simple, almost an open-ended question. You tend to get that. Is that you trying to find out why the player does what they do, or why they play golf, what motivates them? Then you can tap into what intrinsically motivates them when times are tough, really. But it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on kind of your process of getting to know a player, and especially a younger player.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, it's a good, that is like basically, understanding the fingerprint, really, isn't it? And everybody's fingerprint is different, and you can't just apply the same set of values to different situations. And you've got to kind of like get to know the student. You've got to know kind of what is their fight and flight mechanism. I think, again, it almost comes back to just basic human nature. It's like, you can ask the same question to 10 people and you'll get 10 different results. Some of them will have a negative connotation. Some of them will have a positive connotation. Some of them will have a process connotation. Some will have a goal setting connotation. It's like, so you get to know like the way they think, what kind of character they are. Obviously, somebody's character, like, in essence, defines them. And, that is the structure, that is the ball of energy, is somebody's character. And, alongside that character, there's their value system, their belief mechanism. And that then gives you like your skeleton. And then, in essence, you can then start bolting things onto that skeleton, which is going to challenge and support. 1 minute you're trying to challenge the skeleton, next minute you're trying to support it. So it's having that flexibility that does it. So I think that, I think, if I can be almost blunt, if I may, that I think people jump way too quick to just analyzing somebody's golf swing. You know what I mean? It's like, we've all done that. I mean, we've all done that back in the day when, when we're learning to become coaches and we've got a desire to understand the golf swing. And I think that that's almost like the first layer of a coach, is to try and understand mechanics and then apply physics to that mechanics, and understand the different patterns of movement and things like that. You've got that element. But then as you become adept at that, it then becomes like the human interpretation, and the emotional interpretation of those things. So, that in essence is like the next step, which is the coaching element. You know what I mean? It's like, you've got like almost the one-dimensional, two-dimensional golf swing that you can measure on TrackMan, but that will tell you nothing about the ball of energy. You know what I mean? And ultimately, it's the ball of energy that's going to win tournaments, and it's going to like get them on flights at 5 o'clock in the morning to China, and when they've only got £1,000 left in their bank account, and you know what I mean? And it's the stuff that is the drive and is the fuel, you know what I mean? And so I think that, as we get more experienced as coaches, we basically enhance, we broaden our understanding, and also we add depth to that broadening. It almost starts off with a broadening, and then there's the dog. And it starts off with a broadening, and then you add depth to that broadening, and then you then come back up to the surface, and then you broaden, and you add depth, and then you broaden, you add depth. And you know, so you in essence, the last thing you want is to do is have like a very narrow kind of understanding of human beings, because that will not suffice to the fingerprint argument. Do you know what I mean? So people who have success but only have like one success, they're people who just kind of got lucky and like what they teach suits that one person. I think I've been fortunate that, you know, I've been successful with many students in different age groups because in essence, I take that kind of very holistic and that broad approach to their development.
Yeah, and I think that ties in. You label yourself as point one, and the point one coach. You've always talked about attention to detail when I've spent time around you as well, and I think that's what that's referring to is, you know, just those attention to detail, those marginal gains, that small step forward every time. But what I would say is you there, and you touched upon that as a not a teacher or not an instructor, but as a coach. You and as a mentor to a lot of people, you know, you really understand the human in front of you, and you understand then how to communicate with that human in front of you and get the best out of them. And I think that's something that in the world of coaching is something that you have to have. You can have all the biomechanics knowledge in the world. You can understand every bit and piece of, you know, how your arms work, your wrists work, where the club is, the release pattern, etc. But if you can't communicate with the person in front of you, and you can't get your message across, and you can't adapt it to suit them, you know, you're fighting a losing battle. And like you say, you might get successful with one or two players, but you're certainly not going to be successful in a broader field. And you talked just there about, you know, being successful with different players of different ages and different abilities, you know, whether it's kind of county golfers or your England squads that you look after, or whether it's tour players or, you know, amateur champions, major winners, for example. What's your approach with each age and stage? Does it vary, Andrew? Or is it very much the same? How would you describe it?
No. That's it's good. I think that that's a good question. That, and it does vary tremendously. I mean, you know, initially when you've got a young kid, like say, you know, a 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old. It's not really about, you know, it's not about their swing and stuff like that, because, you know, they're going to change physically so much. And it's about developing like the core values, you know, and because those core values, you know, are very much, you know, part of what we are as human beings, even before kind of 10 years old. So, you know, and that depends on obviously loads of different factors, our environment, parents, schooling, et cetera, you know. So I think that what I try and do is develop like the psychological characteristics that are going to help that student further down the line, you know. So I almost work, dare I say it, like 10 years in advance. I mean, you've obviously spent time with Stu and you've seen that, and it's, you know, that's generally what I do. It's kind of like, you know, you've got a young kid, and I'm actually thinking, right, okay, how do I make this kid like the best player, like in 10 years time, and like when they're 21 years old, when they're 11, and you know, and because, you know, if you've got a good relationship, you're going to spend 10 years with that student. So you've got, you know, you've almost got too much time. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's not about getting your video camera out and videoing their swing and like looking at their swing every day, you know, and every week, every fortnight, whenever you see the child. And, you know, it's about sitting down with them and showing them videos of Hogan, like talking to them about Seve and the things that Seve brought to the game, talking about Arnold Palmer and like his approach, his tactical approach, and talking about Tiger. And it's like, you know, in essence, you're trying to like create this, well, I guess it goes back to the ball of energy. You're bolting onto that ball of energy, and you're trying to kind of give them those ingredients that, you know, so one day when they're at tour school, when they're 23 years of age, and they struggle, which everybody does, they understand like how difficult tour school is, but they've already learned some of those skills, you know, when they're 13, you know, when they're 14. And, you know, rather than just like saying, oh, at 13, your club face is a little short, or your swing plane's a bit steep, or you hit too much of a cut. It's purely irrelevant in the long term. That it's, you know, it's nice to have a good swing, and it's nice to hit it straight, but it's irrelevant. And what you're doing is you're building that psychological strength that when they go to tour school, they don't think, I've got to hit it brilliant to get through. I can get through tour school like playing okay. And, you know, I've got a good enough short game. I've got a good enough game plan. I can control my emotions well enough that difficult task, I have skills that can like get me through that difficult task. And then if you don't get through that difficult task, that's good. You actually see the benefit of that. You think, oh, this is fantastic. I've learned some things that I can then like apply to my learning and to my training. So next time when it comes around, I'm better prepared for it. So, you know, you're building this like, this TEFCAS in essence, you know, like I talk about TEFCAS, and I kind of invented this, like everything in life is a trial, you know, and whether we like it or not, it is, and that creates an event. And then, you know, we have to feed that back, we have to check, and we have to adjust it. And then it creates another trial, and, you know, and you have to evaluate that, and then you feed it back and you check and adjust it. And eventually you get the S of success, you know. But some days that S of success just doesn't happen. And so you have to be philosophical, because golf is such a game of chance that some days puts hang on the edge, and some days balls bounce in the bunkers, and some days they don't. And so you have to have that, you know, with a young kid, you teach them to be philosophical, you're teaching them to be like adjustability, you teach them to be accountable, you teach them to be able to like feedback. It's so much about making them into good coaches themselves. You know what I mean? And not just about like, you know, the quality of their swing at 13, even though it's nice to have a good swing at 13. That doesn't necessarily, well, it doesn't mean at all that person's going to be successful. You know what I mean? Quite the opposite, almost like the better the swing at 13, 14, maybe the less chance they've got of being successful, because they're not learning resilience. So they're not knowing how to, you know, recover a score from the semi-rough or from the trees. You know what I mean? And that is golf. You know what I mean? So then you show them videos of Sebi, and you say, look, this guy was the best in the world, and he very rarely hit the center of the fairway. And then if somebody's like offline, and you want to like teach them the value of controlling their ball, you bring Faldo into the argument, and you show them some Faldo stuff, and you make some stories of Faldo, and you create that, like, almost like, I've said this in the past, I have like a board of directors, and this is a good skill to have. And, you know, you have this kind of imaginary board of directors, and they can be anybody. They can be Muhammad Ali, it can be, you know, it can be like Pele, it can be Ronaldo, it doesn't matter. It can be Plato, it can be Socrates, who, you know, whatever. And like, you go to that board of directors, in essence, to ask them questions that you need answering about a certain topic. And it's a ridiculously good way of like broadening that ball of energy. You know what I mean? So, you know, when you're feeling down in the dumps, you have like Rocky Balboa as on your board of directors. When you're feeling like your process is poor, you know, you have like Ben Hogan and Faldo, like to relate to. When you're feeling as though your feet are aching and your back's sore, but you've got to go and practice, you have Rafael Nadal as one of your board of directors, and you know you are Rafael Nadal for that day, and you put up with the pain and you go and practice. And you know, it's that is how champions are built. You know what I mean? It's, you know, you read Sevi's books, and like, which I did as a kid. And, you know, Sevi used to try and hit bunker shots like Gary Player, used to try to hit long irons like Lee Trevino. And, you know, in essence, he was building his, like, you know, he was building his board of directors. And we've all done it. You know what I mean? You will have your board of directors, and David Leadbetter will have his. And in essence, this is the richness of the tapestry that allows us to be individual with that little kid that's in front of us, you know, who has a dream and has ambition, and it's our job to try and make that journey as, I don't know, as rich and like, and as eventful as possible. And, you know, and from those events and from those TEFCAS opportunities, you then learn and you get better, and eventually you find a way, and you climb that kind of greasy pole of life, you know. I don't know whether that makes any sense. It's a bit out there, but, you know, I'm just trying to kind of throw, in essence, it's difficult obviously to talk about these things off the cuff, and trying to give people out there an idea of like how I think. I'm obviously a very creative person, and you know, and I enjoy being a creative problem solver and a total perfectionist alongside, which is sometimes very difficult to bolt the two together, but you know, that's me.
Yeah, no, I think it makes total sense, Andrew. And I think everything you talked about there is totally applicable, not just for developing a player, but developing yourself as a coach as well, because you need to understand all of these attributes for your own coaching style. And, you know, one of the things I always, you know, ask the instructors when they're going through certification is, you know, who are you as a coach? What are your values? Yes, there's maybe you know, within the Leadbetter world, you know, we kind of look at our philosophy or what's helped David be so successful over the years. And a lot of the things you've talked about there, I'm sure would be things that David would mention as well, that have really helped him work well with players. But, you know, I think as a coach, you need to know yourself. I think self-awareness is massive. But as a player, definitely what you're doing there, I think, and I'd ask you this around the players. By what you do there, do you find that helps you have the players manage their expectations better, because they understand that there's a journey ahead, there's a process, that they've got specific challenges that are slightly out of their comfort zone, but there's a good chance they'll see some success, which keeps fueling their self-confidence, their self-belief? Because I've seen you at work, and you set them really tough challenges, but you're a master at setting it just tough enough that there's a chance that they'll succeed, that it's not ridiculously tough, that there's no chance of them ever achieving it, and then it's demoralizing for them.
Yeah.
That there's a chance that it pushes them out the boundary, they succeed, it fuels the self-belief, the confidence, it leads to them feeling as though they are developing and growing. But I think what you do there hopefully manages expectations, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think that expectations are interesting things, that because in essence they change, and they you know, they change daily almost, that you know, because, you know, every day when we wake up slightly differently. We some days we wake up and we feel positive, and other days we don't. And, you know, so kind of like almost like managing expectations is as much a coach's skill as it is a player's skill. The only time you ever have a problem with a player, with a student, in essence, is if their expectations are out of line to what their, either one, their process is, or what their belief mechanism is, you know. So, you know, if you have a kid that thinks they should be British Open champion at 18, and they're only like national champion at 18, that you have problems with that player, and quite often that player will then go to another coach or something like that. And so it's kind of where in reality that the kid might be doing brilliant, being like national champion at 18, you know. And so it's so difficult, that whole expectation thing. And I think parents really make that almost impossible at times. You know, sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's brothers or sisters, sometimes it's girlfriends. You know, because we all like to believe that our son is the best in the world. You know what I mean? And, you know, we lose perspective on, what is realistic. So I think that what you try and do is, in essence, I guess you modulate the environment and the challenges that you present, in essence, to modulate that level of expectation. So it's very, very difficult. And, you know, you're always trying to get better at that, you know, and, you know, you can use drills, you can use challenges, obviously tests, and you can basically say, right, you know, okay, so, you know, the best player in the world, you know, with a driver at 300 yards has a spread of X. So your spread of X is only at 200 yards. So when you're at 300 yards, your spread is Y. So realistically, you're not going to become that player until your X can, you know, your Y can become their X. So, but then again, you don't want to do that to the point where you hurt their feelings so much that then that affects like their ball of energy, because that ball of energy is what gets them out of bed the next day. So that's it's almost impossible. All you're ever doing is like doing your best at that and learning, you know, and that's why it's so important to get to know the student, because, you know, some of like the students that you teach who, one of the kids who I teach, a young lad, he's, you know, I can just make life so difficult for him that it's like almost like what I call impossible challenges. You know, I'll set him impossible challenges, and he'll go away and he'll practice that impossible challenge for a week or 2 weeks, and he'll fail 100 times at that challenge, but then he'll still go and try it the 101st time. But those people are super, super rare. You know, those are the kind of Ronaldos, you know, of our world. With most people, you're using what I would say probably like, I would say most people, I probably use a 75%, 25% ratio if I was going to put it mathematically. So I give them like, you know, a 75% chance of failure, a 25% chance of success. So they've got to try something like 4 or 5 times before they get close to it. If you've got like a really young kid who's really shy, who is like got real potential, they've got a strong ball of energy, but they're super shy, very introverted, then maybe you do a 50-50 with them. You give them a 50% chance of failure, 50% chance of success. And then when they succeed, you then make it a 60-40 the next time. So you're developing their kind of ability to challenge and fail and think and feed and go back, you know what I mean, without affecting the ball of energy. So, you know, that it's a sliding scale. That, you know, it's not there's never like a hard and fast rule, you know what I mean? You can never say, right, this applies, because, you know, it's totally unrealistic to think that what applies to one applies to another. You could have a brother and sister, and what applies to one doesn't apply to another. So, you know, taking that sliding scale, getting it wrong as a coach, you know, I've got it wrong as many times as anybody. And I think it's important to explain that to the student as well. You know, you know, if you're a team, you have to be like a team together, and you're going to explain it and say, well, look, I'm going to make this really challenging, but I'm not quite sure whether this is just too difficult for you. You know, but so bear with me. I think you can do it, but we'll find out in 2 weeks' time when I see you next. And the kid comes back, geez, Nico, that's impossible. Like, you know, I can't do it. Okay, that's fine. We'll adjust, and we'll make it 10% easier. And then you go away, and then they come back. Yeah, I managed that. Okay, now you're going to go and try the one that you failed at again. and then they then achieve that one. So it's kind of like, it's what I call like the Mount Everest way of training. You know, it's like you do not climb like Mount Everest the first time you try and do it. You know what I mean? And you think that you have a logical route, but then when you're climbing that logical route, you hit bad weather, and that bad weather makes that certain ascent, you know, impossible. So then you've got two options. You either stand still, stay in your tent, or you drop a little bit and you move across, and then you try a slightly different route. So, you know, that's the art of the coach is, you know, you either stay, try again, wait, be patient, or you adjust, you fall down the mountain a little bit, you move across the mountain, and then you try a slightly different route. And then eventually you slowly kind of like climb Mount Everest, you know, and then one day you get to the summit. And then when you get to the summit, ironically, that's actually the toughest day. You know, that is like the worst day, is the day you climb Mount Everest, because then it's like, wait, where's the new mountain? And then, oh, do I stay on Mount Everest, or do we create a new mountain? Or do we just create like a harder way of climbing Mount Everest? Because ultimately you're trying to build that resilience and that strength, you know what I mean? So you're trying to, again, it goes back to that ball of energy, you know, you're trying to make that ball of energy as robust and as strong as you possibly can. And you know, so you're constantly evaluating, constantly adjusting. And so you need like a relationship with a student. And that's one of the troubles with COVID. It's like, we haven't seen our students, you know what I mean? So we haven't had the eyeballing, we haven't had the one-to-ones. We haven't had that chance to sit down and say, you know what, I'm like really struggling, Andrew, you know, I could do with some support. And, you know, and then the arm comes round, you know, and maybe make the tasks a little easier. And then we slowly try and build, and we don't try and climb Mount Everest, we maybe just climb Kilimanjaro instead, you know what I mean? So as a coach, you've got to be a thinker. And if you want to be a coach, there's different types of people in golf. You know, you've got your biomechanists who are purely going to analyze something based on, you know, mechanics and forces, and that's fine, you know, that's factual. But then as a coach, you've got the human element that you have to understand. So, you know, you're a great coach, Stewie, you know, and it's kind of it's about developing those skills, those humanistic skills, so you can help that kid. And because also I think that the Mount Everest skills, it's not just about like golf. Even dare I even move this? I know that we're all golfers on here, but dare I move this outside of golf? And you know, I feel that I have a couple of students that have gone on to go to St. Andrews University, and one girl was in my regional squad, and she was very dyslexic. When she was writing things down, she used to draw these amazing like pictures, and you know, and she had to get some special help and this, that, and the other, and then she got like A pluses at A level, and she went to St. Andrews, and she's doing like she's doing kind of astrophysics and things like that. It's incredible. So it's not just about like holding trophies, because what is a trophy really? It's like a trophy is basically just an accountability on a day, a result on a day. And like, to me, if you get a certificate for passing astrophysics, and I've taught that student the ability to TEFCAS and like adjust, and like I've helped to build their mountains and help to navigate those mountains, I think that's just as important as like a national champion winning saying, yeah, there we go, there's a Scottish championship, or there's the Irish, or there's the English. And, you know, because we've all got our own goals, you know what I mean? Not all of them are, you know, not everybody is going to become a brilliant golfer, but we can all become the best we can be.
You know, fascinating. I love the mountain analogy. I think that's so true. And again, the choices you make, do you stick with your decisions as a coach and keep plodding away with them, thinking, hey, no, we need to give this another chance? Or do you quickly adapt, and do you move across a little bit, drop back and then forge a new path that you think. And again, that's the art of coaching. But I think what you really touched upon there for me, Andrew, and I couldn't agree more, is really understanding the person in front of you. You term it the ball of energy, making sure that you can continue to keep that energy lit, and you're not ruining it, you're not putting the fire out within. I think that's important to know what motivates a player. You know, David on the very first Under the Hat talked about the work that he'd been doing with Patrick Reed, and he had Dr. Jim Lair chat with him a little bit, and they figured out what actually motivates and drives him was some stuff that had happened to him in his life as a kid. And they said, well, if we bring him to terms with that too much, we might actually lose the fire that's within. So let's just manage it carefully. And again, that just shows you with David, to the degree he goes to really understand that ball of energy, as you put it, with a player. And I think that's common amongst the best performance coaches, whether that's in golf, athletics, whatever it is, business. I think it doesn't matter whether it's golf or not. It's just like you say, if it's astrophysics at St Andrews University, the same principles apply. Yeah, performance is performance. But yeah, I've got one question before we open it up to any of the viewers here that I would love to ask you. We've talked a lot about what you do to help players develop. I know that you're a thinker, you're a great problem solver, very, very creative, and your brain never rests for a second. I've experienced that for many years. What are you doing to try and help you develop as a coach at the level you are, Andrew? Obviously very, very accomplished, but you're always striving to become better. Is there anything specific, or is it just a case of just learning by experience, or what would you say?
Yeah, I think, okay, I'm going to probably throw a bit of a grenade in here, really. That I think that we all want to learn, right? But I think in this day and age of kind of one-day courses and weekend courses, where we live in a world of certificates now, you know, and like, if you think about it, a certificate is a very kind of like one-dimensional thing. You know, in essence, it's a piece of paper. And I think it stands for kind of one-dimensionality as well in many ways. So I think that for me, I have never, ever chased like certificates and accolades or anything like that. It's what I love is interaction. It's kind of, I learn from interaction. I'm interested in people, and I learn from, in essence, the people I meet. And, you know, I'm 53 years of age now, and, you know, and I've had the chance to meet, you know, some very successful people in different walks of life, you know, so they have climbed their Mount Everest. And, you know, I'll ask them questions about their Mount Everest trip. And, you know, so my view to my own development has been holistic itself. I haven't like scoured the internet. I don't go on YouTube and listen to stuff on there. I think I've been fortunate where I've had the opportunity to be around good people and great people, and I've really made the most of those opportunities. And then naturally, I have a very, 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 you know, my character is one of, I'm very inquisitive. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I can remember as a 6-year-old kid, it just took me back here, crazy memory, where I set up like a torch, and I got a torch, and I set it up on some books, and I got like my dad's magnifying glass, and then I put a bit of paper on it all, and I tried to work out how strong the torch was by how much it would burn the piece of paper. And I think that I've just always just been inquisitive, and I think that comes from my parents, you know, my dad, obviously, you know, my dad was a great man, and, you know, way more brighter than me. And I think that he always just taught me to, he never like gave me the answer. You know, he could have given me the answer on anything all day long, every day. He always just like left me just short of the answer. Mm-hmm. And I then had to go away and then learn that last little bit of the answer. And I think now where, you know, the social media aspect, and where people, you know, like wanting to put certified for this, certified for that. And we live in a world of TrackMans and flight scopes, and we live in a world of, you know, force plates, and where in essence what you can do is you can spend the money and then you get it, and then that's it. And then you could say, right, I'm a master of that. In truth, are you the master of that? You know what I mean? You know, you're just not. So I try and, you know, I try and not use TrackMan. I try and not use Sam Butler. You know what I mean? It's like I almost challenge myself to try and like go back to basics, and only use those things if I feel as though they're going to add anything to the learning environment, you know. And so, like I said, it's a bit of a grenade, and I probably shouldn't say these things because, you know, a lot of the people on this call, you know, the reason why they're on this call is because they want to learn. But then I'm trying to say to them, look, the best way you can learn is to, like, one, be inquisitive and like find good people and like build your own like metaphorical board of directors, mm-hmm. and build your real board of directors, and ask yourself, you know, that guy who you teach who's a 24 handicap, who runs a software company, who's really successful, what, you know, what skills does he have that he applies to his software company that you can then apply to him for his 24 handicap, that you can apply to you in your life to become a better person and a better coach, and help him become a 24 handicapper that can break, you know, 85 for the first time. Do you know what I mean? So it's taken this holistic approach. You know, that's all I can say is that, you know, it's not about TrackMan. It's not about Flight Scope. It's not about Sam Butler. I mean, but it's about using them like 1% of the time with the right person at the right time. Do you know what I mean? And it's about, sometimes it's about when it's raining and you're in the bay and you've got TrackMan, it's actually about saying, you know what, I'm putting TrackMan away here. We're going to go outside and we're going to practice in the rain. And we're going to learn like how your grip affects like your control of the club when the grips are wet. You know what I mean? And like, it's thinking outside the box, where everybody would then just stay inside and then say, oh yeah, you've got great first to pass today. Well done. Yeah, well done. Yeah. But that doesn't mean the guy's going to win in tournaments. You know what I mean? It might be raining on the back nine of the tournament, and he doesn't realize that those last two fingers of the left hand, they control the club face in transition. You know what I mean? So think, how well is that? How well is that grip? I'm just using that as an example, you know what I mean? But so, you know, your question is basically, what have I done to learn? I think that one, no doubt about it, as you would agree, we were incredibly fortunate to be taken into the Leadbetter wing, you know what I mean? And I look back on that, well, that job interview, and then that flight, and then that period at Lake Nona, basically has been the catalyst that everything else has come from. Do you know what I mean? If I didn't have that catalyst, okay, I still would have been a good coach. I still would have done all right. But again, it goes back to like teaching like the values. It's the hub of the wheel. You know what I mean? It's like what Lake Nona taught us was attention to detail. Make sure the camera is not too high, it's not too low, it's in the right position. Making sure that, you know, you've got the right setting of light, so you can see the movement of the arms and things like that. It's really the value. It's that initial period, and then you see the best players in the world, how they practice, and then it's talking to the best players in the world. It's talking to Nick Price. It's talking to Ernie Els. It's talking to Nick Faldo, and then it's giving. And then you then start building like these little seeds. And then you spend your life trying to cultivate the knowledge that is those seeds, really. So I think that, you know, you can hear my passion, obviously. You know me, Stewie, like, you know, and, you know, I've always had that passion, you know what I mean? And in essence, I was fortunate to get an opportunity to release my ball of energy. And I guess that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to kind of like, you know, there'll be people on this call now that will be like us 25 years ago. They have this ball of energy. And you're like saying to me, Andrew, how did you like become like, you know, a good coach? And it really, it's about one, that ball of energy that you have, that desire to understand people, you know, understand physics, understand mechanics, understand psychology, understand biomechanics, understand environmental constraints, you know, understand process, because all these things have an impact on that ball of energy, you know. So, and it's a 30-year job. You can't do that in a weekend, like at a seminar, like when somebody is just flashing, like, you know, kind of screenshots at you. Do you know what I mean? It's way more deeper than that, and it takes longer than that. You know what I mean? And so I would say that, I don't know if there is any young Stuart Claytons, young Andrew Nicholsons, young David Leadbetters on this call. It's like, it's take a long-term view at your own development, just like you want to do with your student. And don't feel as though you've learned it. Don't feel as though there's a fast track. You know, that there is not a fast track. It's like, you know, it's doesn't matter whatever you do in life, whether you're a brain surgeon, a golf coach, you know, a painter and decorator, a craftsman, an electrician. It's like, it takes time. It takes time, and it takes application. It takes failure. It takes TEFCAS. It takes asking questions to other masters of those trades, learning from them. It's building that. It's like a patchwork, you know. It's building that patchwork. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense.
You know, it does, and you can see your passion come through when you talk about it. And I know you, obviously, we've got kind of history together, and you're incredibly inquisitive. And I think that was the word that you said that really stood out to me, is, you know, you would always question, you would always ask, you would always go looking for the answers and searching. And what you said about your dad, you know, who I know is a great man as well. You know, he talked about just leaving you that little bit short of the answer. I think that's just great coaching, isn't it? You know, it's just great coaching to lead somebody and point them in the right direction, but just go, well, I'm not giving you the solution, because you have to go find it out. You have to own it, because when you're coming down the stretch in the major, I'm not going to be there. You better own these feelings and this strategy and be able to solve it. So no, Andrew, as always, great advice. And for anybody that is,
Stewie, I've got like what I've got to do, right? Okay, this is respect to my dad, who, as I'm sure a lot of you know, passed away, which has been very difficult for me. But let me share my last. This is coming from the heart here, guys. All right, this is the last text my dad sent to me in his life. All right, so there's bits and bobs in there, but he was thanking me for he was in lockdown and this and the other, thanking me. I took him to some lamb chops and some crab and this and the other, some of his favorite foods. So he was thanking me for that. But this is the bit, right? This is the way. This is in essence. Think about this, right? Take a holistic view of what I'm going to tell you here, right? So, he said, then to change the subject, you're a thinker, son. It's always amazed me that time is slowed by a gravitational pull. E.g., astronauts' watches were different from time as they approached the moon. the larger the body in the sky, that more that time is slowed down. Question mark, Dad. You know, that's my dad, you know. It's like, till his last ever text is like, son, go away and figure out gravitational pull in gravity changing environments. And that's the best thing I could say to like anybody out there, is use that metaphor. Do you know what I mean? It's a very good metaphor, that, for like, try and understand your subject.
No, Andrew, brilliant, and thank you for sharing. I know that can't have been easy for you as well, and I know how much he means to you. So we've got one question come in from Anthony McMenamin. Anthony's based in Ireland. He's actually going through our certification. But Anthony, if you want to open your microphone up there, you can ask Andrew your question yourself there.
Hello, how you doing, guys? Hi, Andrew, how you doing?
Anthony, how are you doing? Good.
My question for you was, if your clients, or some of them, are selected for national coaching and you don't agree with the philosophies that they teach, should you let them go?
Wow, that's a grenade, eh? Yeah.
Both you and I are involved in national setups, so we'll be careful here.
I think to be fair, you make an honest point, you know. It's you make you know, that, because ultimately there's different ways of swinging a golf club, you know what I mean? And that's what makes this job so like interesting, is that, you know, everybody's different, everyone swings different, everybody moves differently, everybody thinks differently, everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. So, you know, sometimes if they go into an environment of another coach, that coach is going to, in essence, like, you know, if they're not a holistic thinker, they're going to try and like put their values and like their blueprint onto that student. And we've all been in that situation. I was there as a player. The best thing I could do is, the best advice I would give is that, one, you need to like open a line of communication with the coaching hierarchy of Ireland, and, you know, ask them the reasoning behind what they're doing. Ultimately, you're their coach, not them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I think that is important for me. I coach kids who have got home coaches. I am not their home coach. I am there to help and support the team, you know. I am not the coach. So, you know, if somebody came to me, so say I was teaching your kid, and you said, oh, Andrew, you know, what's this that you told him about this, that, and the other? You've asked him to change his grip, and I don't agree with you. I would then say, well, you know, explain to me your reasoning behind, you know, your grip, you know, why you want to grip like that. And I'll explain to him my reasoning behind the grip. And then, you know, hopefully you can like meet together and like come together for the good of the student. And hopefully it's not a situation where it's a black and white and you end up dum, dum, dum. And then, because that's the nightmare for everybody, because, you know, in essence, nobody wins in that situation. You know, definitely the kid does not win. You know, you want him to like learn in different environments from other coaches, but not to the detriment of what you believe are his important fundamentals. So that's always a difficult one. And if you've got polar opposing views, that then they end up doing this, but then you've got to use, like, I guess, the art of communication to try and find some middle ground and get one another to explain one another's views on that, and then try and come to an agreement that is supportive of the child. I think that would be the logical approach that I would take. Either one, as in your shoes, 2, as the coach of the national team, you know, or the regional team, you know. So I don't know whether that helps at all, but I think that dialogue is important. I think that, you know, I think that we're losing, well, you know, we should never lose the art of communication. Once we start, it's almost like once we do start to lose communication, that's when things get difficult. Whenever I've had any problems with people, it's just when, in essence, communication starts to drop off, and you know, and you misinterpret stuff, and then it becomes like fractious, and then it becomes difficult, then it becomes an argument, and then it becomes about pride and this, that, and the other, and then all hell breaks loose. So I would say, yeah, just, you know, get them to ask their opinion, you know, to pass it on, ask for their reasoning, you know, either agree or disagree. Ultimately, if you're the home coach, that they should really respect your opinion, because you're the home coach. As simple as that. They are not the home coach. So that would be my view on it.
I think, you know, from my side, Andrew, obviously I'm involved with the women and the girls squads here in Scotland, and you know, I always ask the players. I think it's the players' responsibility, especially at national coaching level. You know, the players are good players at that point, probably striving to, you know, represent their country. So I'll always ask them, hey, what are you working on? Why are you working on it? What's it going to do for you? How is it going to help you? And if they can't explain it, you know, there's a conversation there to say, well, maybe you need to understand why you're working on things. I'm sure there's a reason behind it. If it's something you don't agree with, as a national coach, then like Andrew said, there's a conversation to be had with the coach, but I would always do that without the player first. I don't want the player getting involved. I don't want them to see any kind of conversation around that, because the last thing you want is the player getting lost in the middle of this. Everything has to be done for the player's benefit. And I think a lot of the governing bodies are, you know, have definitely shifted over the years to their sessions being much more performance orientated, and they understand that nearly all the players that have been selected have coaches in place. So I think a lot of them are not technically based, but I may be wrong. It may be different in Ireland. I'm not sure, but that would be kind of my take a little bit on it.
I mean, Anthony, do you want to elaborate a little bit on that point, and then maybe Stuart and I can kind of give our opinion on
it? Well, what we find here is that people who get selected for national coaching feel they're going to step up. And what happens is they don't get the attention and care that they were receiving with their personal coach. And then as years and time goes on, they end up back to square one, you know. They don't end up improving the way they should. Now, obviously, some do, some don't. Like, take the 2 Maguire sisters. One of them is fantastic, the other one isn't as good, you know. Yet the 2 of them had the same coach growing up as a kid. And it's only when they went to national coaching, they kind of got broken up and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I told the parents to keep them with their home coach, as you're saying, which I think makes perfect sense, and then let them have their days out. Like over here, it's nearly compulsory that you don't get selected for teams and things if you don't show up for national coaching, you know. I think the main thing is to, as you're saying, to elaborate between the 2 coaches, between the national coach and their own home coach.
Yeah. I think that the job of a national coach is getting harder and harder and harder, for a good reason in a way, is because the home coaching network is generally stronger now than what it was 10, 20 years ago, you know, and a lot of the time the home coach is actually more experienced and more knowledgeable than the actual national coach. So I think that, you know, to look at it from the perspective of the national coach, you know, that it is a difficult job that they've got, because, you know, the player has built up a relationship with a home coach, maybe since they were little kids. And, you know, and that's a good thing. And, you know, in essence, it's really for the national coach to support that. And problems occur when they don't. Simple as that, really. And I think that people come into coaching for different reasons, and they use their power in different ways. Some people,
I think you hit the nail on the head there, that the national coach should support the home coach and not the other way around.
I agree with you. I think that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stuart, you carry on.
No, I was just going to agree with you. I was just nodding my head, Andrew, that our job within the national setup, I think, is to support the journey that the players on with their own personal coach, because players start younger and younger now with their own coaches, and parents invest a lot of time and money. And for the most part, they've sought out good coaches, and there's good advice, good coaching being done. And like Andrew said, a lot of the coaches that the players work with are maybe more experienced than some of the national coaches. And I think a lot of players do have a lot of good stuff in place. But the communication's the key, isn't it? I think, really. You know, being able to communicate and make sure that both coaches park the ego for a second and go, right, what's best for the child here? You know, is everybody on the same page? And when they go for their national training and their performance sessions, is it being productive for that individual? And I can only speak for what's being done here in Scotland, but a lot of the performance stuff we do is all geared around the individual. Yes, they're in a group, but not everybody's doing the same thing. It looks a bit chaotic, to be fair, but everybody's off doing what's beneficial for them and their game, and what's going to help improve their scoring average, and what's going to help improve their whole development, as Andrew's touched upon, all those key areas. And I think that again is testament to how the governing body here have tried to revamp things and you know, bring Catriona and Paul in to offer a bit of advice, and it is very much individualized around the players now, as much as it's a group setting.
Yeah, I think that I think that it's key that the national body really kind of like tries to support, well, the network, because there is almost a network, isn't there? You've got the national coach and the regional coaches and stuff, and you know, you're trying to support the home network, you know, as best you can. You're not trying to devalue the home network, because, you know, I mean, okay, you do get the odd occasion where the home network isn't strong enough and robust enough and knowledgeable enough, but it's still the home network. And it's, you know, if you take this analogy and, well, take this example and you move it to a different life, it's like, you know, if you had a kid who's in a home that, in essence, the kid is having difficulty, but that is the home, you don't just go in and grab the kid and take the kid out of the home. You know what I mean? It's like you try and like understand the environment, and you try to educate, and you try and help and support. It's only like last case scenario, then you would then remove. So it's the same thing in our world, isn't it? It's like, and this is why like educating parents is just as important as like educating the kid. And it's like, you know, the home network is a multitude of factors. You know, you've got their environment. You know, it's like I try and support the kids' environment. Like you know, some of the girls and stuff who I teach, you know, get them to join Ganton and things like that, where they can go and play on a wonderful golf course. And you know, you've got multiple like tools in your toolbox to try and help that ball of energy like get better. And you know, helping the home environment, you know, home coach, might be home S&C, you know, might be home psych, you know what I mean? It's like helping that, developing that. And if they don't have that, it's finding them and developing them. And then it's, you know, adapting their environment. Some of my kids, they're a member of a links course, an inland course. So you're trying to broaden their skill sets and stuff like that. So, you hope that the national coaching bodies, they think along those lines. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. I don't know Ireland. I can speak for England, and England is very good, and they do their best to try and support, the home network. There is robust lines of communication that can be touched on at any time. There's very good communication protocols put in place to support lines of communication. We use a thing called Coach Now, and and then in essence you can put all of the home network on the Coach Now. So anything that is shared with my girls goes onto that network. So like all their parents can see it, their home coach can see it. So there's never any kind of smoke and mirror situation, which hopefully at least then there's integrity and transparency. And alongside that integrity and transparency, there's some trust. And then you can then develop things on the back of that trust,
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. Andrew, do you have time for one last question?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I enjoy these things.
Yeah, perfect. Lawrence, do you want to open your microphone up? Lawrence Brotheridge has got a question for us.
All right, good old Lawrence, the man.
Hey, Andrew.
Lawrence. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. It's like so invaluable. I've been sat in the seat, kind of listening to every word. So no, thank you very much. I thought I'd take this opportunity just to kind of ask, when some of your players have touched on success and then they kind of dip back a little bit in their performance, how do you go about kind of what are your steps to try and reignite kind of their performance again?
Yeah, I think that obviously it's like the Mount Everest scenario, isn't it? That you're not, unless you're it's almost fortunate actually. I think if you can like climb Mount Everest, seamlessly, then it's more luck than it is judgment. And I think so that the reality is that, you have to navigate and, so part of that navigation, I guess, is evaluation and, kind of best practice, because, the nature of what we do is, you try things that have worked in a certain situation, might have worked for that person in the past, and then all of a sudden, actually, like maybe they don't work so well, and because that is the Mount Everest scenario. So I think that you're constantly trying to evaluate, and again, I guess you're trying to constantly add robustness. You're not trying to kind of make the process narrower, actually, because like the narrower it is, then the harder it is to move within it. And so, if you say to the person, right, okay, no, you're still swinging too steep, and that's the reason why you still got that kind of right miss, because you still like back off it and hold it. And, that might be a point, but then is there a point where you just think that person is going to have that steep movement forever, and you've tried to improve it for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and there's been periods where you've improved it, and they may have actually seen some success in those periods, but when it comes down to real pressure situations, it comes back. So you have to like look at a different set of options. Are you better off decade in that movement, that right miss, you know what I mean, and like just changing your start lines and decade in it, or do you look at a different approach to their physical condition, as a way of trying to maybe open up their shoulder joint a little bit better, and and again, I suppose that is the broadening of it, and it's what I try and do with all my students is, I guess you start off with the basics of like you know, what's their swing like? What's their practice like? How's their putting? How's their pitching? How's their short game? How's their approach play? And then, you know, you build on that. If you've got someone who's small, you've got two options. You either build strength into their size or you improve their accuracy. So, but then maybe then all of a sudden they get accurate, but still not good enough to get them to that level and they fall down. You know, especially in this day and age now where everybody's hitting at 320, 330, it is very difficult to win without that skill now. And I think that's a separate conversation. You could have a whole conversation on that, whether that's good for the game or not. But so to answer your question, Lawrence, I think that to deal with that, you know, helter-skelter, to deal with that Mount Everest, where somebody almost gets to the summit and then falls down maybe to base camp, you know, which is, you know, which happens, and it's difficult for the coach and for the pupil to deal with that, because you feel as though you're so close and then you're like so far away, and it breaks your heart, and you know, and you can see the students' confidence go and stuff. So in essence, you've got to like go back to, I guess point one is to go back to, you know, what situations worked for that student that created some momentum up Mount Everest, but then also to like think that just because you're doing the same thing again, it doesn't necessarily think you're going to get a different result, you know. So you're trying to kind of in one way learn from the pathway that you've already trod, but then just to expect that you're going to then all of a sudden ascend Everest with that same pathway is probably unrealistic. So then you're trying to use a bit of the same pathway, but then move off to build some new strengths that make the climber more robust. So then when they get to that little bit where they're just that tough incline, that edge that they're hanging off, be it tour school, be it first year on tour, you know, be it Walker Cup selection, you know, it's where they fell and they took a dive. It's like, how can we then give them a better chance of climbing that same situation in the future? And it's not to say that I've got all the answers, to be honest, Lawrence. It's like, you know, we're all learning in those situations. We all are learning and adapting from our failures and from our experiences. And I guess that's TEFCAS. Not all of us have 100% of the answers 100% of the time, and it's naive to think that we do. So all the best we can do is reach out to other people if we feel as though we lack a certain understanding of a certain thing, which again is building our real board of directors as well as our metaphorical board of directors. And reaching out to people that maybe have a broader skill set in certain environments than what we have, so we can learn and we can also like help our student adapt in that environment a little bit better. I always remember Chris Paisley. That I think about Chris and I think about, you know, he's a small guy, and I think about how I needed to, you know, he played Walker Cup and then he went to first stage of tour school and failed. And his first time he'd kind of done something like that and failed. And then the next year he failed at tour school, got to final stage and didn't get through. But basically I kind of like lined up Ramsey McMaster to help develop his physical skills, you know, because he had like technical skills were good. You know, his short game skills were good. His approach play was good. It just basically the ball wasn't going far enough. So, you know, you find somebody who can help you develop that. So Ramsey was that person. So that was like, I guess when I, you know, broadened my board of directors, and then allowed, like, by broadening that, allowed a stronger coaching environment that then made the player, you know, give the player an extra skill set, which then allowed him to jump that little bit higher up on Mount Everest. You know, that's probably the best analogy I can use, really.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, mate.
Andrew.
Glad you're doing so well, and congratulations to you for all your success. You know, it's incredible.
Well, listen, I always remember when I left your academy, when you and Stu were there, and I think the last thing you said to me before I jetted off somewhere was, and I remember you rushing out the academy just before I was like heading off, and you said, "Hey, just remember, always ask why. Just always ask why." And that always sticks with me. That's always in my head now, you know, for the past 15, 16 years.
Good. I mean, yeah. Well, it served you very well, because you've gone on to become a fantastic coach yourself.
Thank you.
And that's my dad, basically. All I'm doing there is just passing my dad on, and you know, that's all he used to say to me was when I used to come home and shoot 85, and you know, and kind of like sit there sulking at the dinner table, and like, you know, how's your day been, son? And I shot 85 today, Dad. And all right, you know, why do you think you did that? And he would never give me the answers. It was just like always like, you know, you've got to go and research the why, and try and understand the why, and then go and practice the answer to the why. And that was his great way that he was. He was a good coach, you know what I mean? And even though he wasn't a coach, he was a scientist and an engineer, but you know, he had the same approach to the problems. So yeah, I'm glad in a way that what he taught me is like being passed on to you, and you'll be passing it on to other coaches. And that's the wonderful thing about what we do, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's not just about us. It should never be about pulling a drawbridge. You know what I mean? And I think too many people pull the drawbridge, and it's kind of like, right, great, I've made it, and like, you know, the more I can keep other people down, the higher it looks as though I've achieved, you know. And it's about helping other people, and you know, and passing on those little kind of pearls of wisdom, I guess, that, you know, foundational pearls of wisdom that, you know, and you know, you've gone away there, and that's made my day that you've said that. So that's very kind of you to say that, and that's made my day. Simple as that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
So, Andrew, talking about pearls of wisdom, you've certainly dropped a few for us today, and for all the listeners and the viewers, and you've been so gracious with your time as well, and some great topics there. So on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you for giving up some time on your day off as well, and for everybody that's joined us today, and for the great questions. So thank you. If you guys want to obviously listen to Andrew talk a little bit more on his Instagram channel, he generally has some Nico rants that I would really recommend you follow and you listen to. There's some fantastic insights again there, and generally when you're out walking Rosie, you start talking about some certain topics, but definitely worth following if you don't already. Point One Golf Coach, I believe it is. So Andrew, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's great to connect with you. Great to see you again. And thank you everybody for joining us.